Well, good evening, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. Welcome to 2026. Can you believe we made it? I actually thought that the computers weren't going to be able to roll over to the new date. I went and bought a generator, like all sorts of things. I got food rations and bathtubs full of water just in case it was the end of time. Sorry, no, that was Y2K. Sorry, this is 2026. January 1st, 2026. Thank you for joining me for my first podcast of the year. Today, because this is going to be the most important year in Alberta's history, arguably, not even arguably, that's the facts. I wanted to make sure that we started off the year letting everybody know how important it is to start showing up for things and actually make a difference. If there's one guy in Alberta that knows about this, it's my friend David. You might recall a few years back, it is actually a few years back now, he rallied people together, mobilized them, taught them how things work, and we got rid of a premier. Then we elected another one, and we started to change things within political systems that at one point were completely alien to us. It was like another language. But David Parker, he took time and he explained to people how these things work with a perspective from the inside. And we accomplished the things we wanted to accomplish. Now we have something much, much more important that we need to accomplish in 2026. And that is a successful referendum on Alberta independence. So I figured let's have a chat with David and he can fill us in on some of the things we can do to make sure that Alberta becomes the most free and prosperous nation on the planet. So, welcome, Mr. Parker. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Chris. It's good. I've been kind of in the newborn isolation for the last little while, so I'm coming up for air to do this podcast, but it's great. We have another child, and everybody who's had children knows that that's a lot of work. So, transitioning into having two kids is very good, but very hard work. And I'm just really excited for 2026 because
it's going to be awesome.
My wife's relaunched her show. It's already doing very well, thanks to, of course, so many amazing freedom people that support me and support her, and we're very grateful for those people. Thousands of them across this province. And I think she's done a great work as a journalist, but it's good to see her back in the seat doing what she loves because, pregnancy is hard. And I admire women a lot for going through that because it's just wild to watch.
Yeah. Well, it certainly isn't the most pleasant of things at sometimes. And I've only been on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Kind of recipient
watching, not having to experience it ourselves. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God for that. But he gave us the pleasure and the blessing of being the ones that get to be with the pregnant woman.
Right. Yeah, their side's way harder, I've got to say. But it just they can't do as much, so you have to do more. And I think that's important as a man, is take on more responsibility. But Jordan Peterson really brought this home in ways that I couldn't. But clean your room. Right. Pick up your cross, as of course Jesus said. So I think more of us need to do that. And that brings us to exactly what you wanted to talk about, which is what is the goal here? What are we trying to achieve? Well, honestly, sacrifice. Like, a lot of people are going to have to make sacrifices. I know you've made a lot of sacrifices, more than almost anyone. There's been hundreds of people. Tamara, right now under house arrest. That's a pretty big sacrifice for our freedoms. Marco spent months in prison. I could go through a lot of people who sacrificed a lot. James Coates. There's a lot of heroes in this movement, right? Those are people who've made sacrifices. That's why they're heroes in this movement. One of those heroes is Mitch Sylvester, who has sacrificed years of his life now fighting for freedom. The reason that people have a voice like yourself or Tamara or Mitch is because they've done the work. They've proven that they've got skin in the game. And I've told so many people this. I've said, I can't tell you, Chris, the number of people who've come up to me and have said, I have a great idea for what we need to do to push independence forward.
We'll do it.
Every time I say, yes, good, awesome, go do it. And they're like, I wanted you to do it. And I just wanted to be the guy who came up with the idea. And I'm like, I got way more ideas than I have time for. Like, I don't need ideas. I need people who are going to do things. And I think there's layers here, right? So if we're talking about what can you do to move the ball forward, well, the very first thing anybody can do, how can you show up at least to the minimum? This is the least you can possibly do, okay? The very least you can do is that when the moment comes where you're in a conversation with someone, and you will be, because this is going to be the biggest topic of conversation in Alberta for the next year. There's no question. When you're in that conversation, you need to have prepared yourself. I'm not saying you, Chris, because you obviously have. I'm talking to your viewers. You need to have prepared yourself to answer for why you believe what you believe. This is a biblical principle. Jesus taught it, and Paul expounded upon it. And it's be prepared to defend what you believe when you are questioned. Okay? Well, that goes for anything. It doesn't just apply to Christianity. If you're going to be an advocate for something, you better be prepared to defend it. And defending it means knowing why Alberta independence is the only path forward for the citizens of this province to avoid the cataclysm, the economic cataclysm that's coming to the nation state of Canada. And that's due to mass immigration, plummeting birth rates, economic decline, out of control spending. I could go into a whole list of why Canada's going
combined with political apathy.
Oh, and well, that's how we got here. This is corruption. Minnesota. If anybody wants to know what's going on, Minnesota is a test case in how government spends money. I wouldn't even be remotely surprised if 20% of all tax dollars are funneled into the hands of people's friends, in some way, shape, or form. Okay? I believe that with my whole heart. I can't prove it because I'm not in the accounting and I'm not in the government, right? I can't prove what I'm saying, so I'll put that caveat there. But Minnesota is the tip of the iceberg, folks, on the level of corruption that's in Alberta, that's in Canada, that's on municipal level. Like, I've been to meetings in Red Deer County where a sole source a contract was put up for bid, and the higher bidder got it over the lower bidder, and they were competent businesses, and there were weird connections in the background, but nothing could ever be proven, right? Nothing could ever be proven. It's always nothing can ever be proven. Well, in Minnesota, things have been proven because it becomes so blatant, so easy to be corrupt, so rewarded to be corrupt, that it's become obvious to everyone. So that a citizen journalist like this Nick guy, who's amazing, he did a great job, I have to say.
One guy with a camera.
Billions of dollars. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, folks. But you want to know how that happened? Because we have the idea of citizenship in most people's minds is voting when there's an election.
Right.
That is the level of, and guess what? Not everyone even does that. In fact, if you look at recent municipal elections in Red Deer, 21% turnout for the Red Deer municipal election.
Insane.
Absolutely 1 in 5 people. Do you know what message that sends to politicians? Nobody cares and nobody's paying attention.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Funnel the money.
We must be doing a great job. And for all I know, I have good friends with someone who's on Red Deer City Council. It doesn't sound like they're doing a bad job from what I know. But I'm just saying 21%, that is like a fertile ground for corruption. That is the ground it's bred in, is nobody's paying attention. So we think that the idea of citizenship, a good citizen, someone who votes all the time, that's like a high bar in the modern world. That's the level of apathy we're dealing with. Like citizenship, the idea of citizenship, which was created by the Greeks and Romans, basically. Like before that, it was you were part of a tribe, a family, basically, a big family, right? But the Romans and Greeks came up with this idea of being a citizen. But the level of involvement that you had to have as a citizen, first, in Rome, there was an election every single year. and you couldn't run 2 years in a row for a very long time, right? So the leader, the premier of Alberta would change every single year. But not just that, every year you elected the magistrates for 1 year who would oversee all of the legals. And sometimes you had to take your turn and be the magistrate. And that was what it meant to be a citizen. Okay. That was like just your regular everyday citizen would go through that cycle every single year. We have somewhat similar processes, a little bit in the Western world, more in America. They have more elections and they elect more people. We appoint a lot of people in Canada, and those people are appointed by party leaders primarily. So cabinet appointed by a leader. So we're a monarchy, right? Like even our political parties are structured like monarchies. And a lot of people don't realize that because their level of understanding for politics is, I like this team or that team because they represent these values or these values, and that's politics to them. And I vote for this team because it represents these values. That's politics. That's how they understand it. That's the base level. If you get involved, if you start showing up, you realize that's actually not what politics is, that almost all of the most important decisions are decided long before there even is an election. Like who's going to run in that election, or what policies is that party going to run on? Those decisions are decided before. Who's going to be the leader of that party? Those decisions are decided at different times than the election. That's just the simplest way I can put it. And if you're not involved in a party, whether it be the NDP has way better involvement because they just bring in the unions, right? But whether it's the UCP or the NDP or whatever party, the Republican Party of Alberta, the power and strength of a political institution is directly correlated with the activity of the people in that institution.
And that speaks to this comment right here. Echo Quick says, the thing is, look who's running. Why vote? No one there worth voting for. And what David's saying is, by the time it gets to the vote, you've missed probably 70% of the participation, right?
I would say 90.
Meetings,
90.
Nominations, the whole thing.
Party AGMs, board elections, EDAs. This is where, in fact, like this is how leaders are made. This is how Stephen Harper was made. This is how Jason Kenney was made. This is how Danielle Smith was made. All these people, right? It isn't a spectator sport. I agree with that comment by Deborah. It is absolutely not a spectator sport. Politics is, and here's people don't even think politics is a sport. They think it's the weather. Right? Right? They think it's just a thing that happens. To them, yes, because they're not involved. But it's not just a thing that happens. There's tribes and coalitions and movements, and you've seen that over the last 4 years. You've been very involved, right, Chris?
Only for 4 years of my adult life. For the rest of it, I had no clue, David. I didn't even know what a CA was. Well,
that's what I'm saying. Nobody did. And that's how they liked it. Because if nobody knew where the decisions were made, the decisions could be made and then presented to the people as a choice. That's what politics has become in our society. It's not the system that was built this year, 250 years ago, by the Americans that we adopted a lot of when we formed Canada under Sir John A. Macdonald. We did take a lot from the British, but we were a merger of the British and American systems. We're a federation. The UK is not a federation, right? I mean, I guess if you say Ireland and Scotland and England then they are a federation. But those are three distinct nations, not states and provinces like we have, right? Mm-hmm. We took the American model and we became a federation of provinces or a dominion under the monarch. But the democracy that we had was very rigorous. People engaged all the way up and down. Now, there was way less people than there are today. So maybe the absolute number wasn't as big, right? Maybe it was like 10,000 people would engage in the riding, but there was only 40,000 people in the riding, right? Now, if you have a CA meeting with 1,000 people at it, that's a boomer. Like that's
gangbusters, yeah.
That's like massive. I mean, people used to care about this stuff. People used to be involved and engaged. Now, we have to remember that the system itself primarily is built to produce certain outcomes. And the Canadian system was built to produce, and we know this. You talk about this all the time. The Canadian system was built to extract resources from the periphery to bring it to the center, which is Ontario and Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's just the reason for the creation of the nation of Canada and the political system that we have. If you look at it, it's obvious that that is the reason that it was created the way it is. So the output of a system is the purpose of a system, right? Like Jesus put it very simply, look at the fruit, right? If you by their fruit, you will know them. So if they produce good fruit, then there's good in them. And if they produce bad fruit, there's bad in them. And the system, the fruit of the Canadian system, is the subjugation of places like Alberta, which are wealthier, harder working, more industrious. I mean, I could go on a whole and use it and taking their wealth and distributing it in primarily now, distributing it around the world or through welfare and wealth distribution. That's what the nation state of Canada is using your labor and work for, is to give it to people who aren't doing those things. And that's able to happen because nobody's participating. And I think if you look at the evidence of what was achieved by Take Back Alberta and now APP, what they're doing in Alberta, you'll see that because our democracy has atrophied and apathy reigns supreme and most people are completely ignorant of how their political system works, your efforts as an individual, everybody listening to this right now, are magnified probably 100-fold to what they would have been, say, 100 years ago. Because so few people are involved that a small group of people can get involved and have a massive impact. And if you want the evidence of that happening, perhaps in ways that your listeners wouldn't be excited about, is the woke minority is actually a tiny minority. Like the people who are like pushing transgenderism and DEI, they just show up. They're there all the time. They're relentless because they're true believers. Mm-hmm. They actually believe in their cause and they're willing to fight for it and they're willing to push for it. They're willing to be embarrassed for it and they're willing to be ashamed or like shamed because of their views. And they'll just keep fighting because they're true believers. Whereas most regular people just want to go through their lives and they don't want to be bothered with things. And, you know, they're
don't want
busy.
to miss the hockey game.
Yeah. The biggest Canadian or Albertan excuse for not being involved, the number one, and it's not even close, is I'm busy, because Albertans are busy. We're an industrious people. That's why we're so productive. We have almost the same contribution to the nation of Canada as Ontario, and they have 3 times our population. Right? Like we are a very
on that on our GDP comparison. Alberta is a new value creating GDP. Ontario, they do some new value creation, but they have a lot of parasitic draw, bureaucracy, services, those types of things. So they're 36% of GDP to our 15%. We punch way higher than 15%.
Way higher than our weight. Way higher, right? So look, we can stay in Canada. We can keep sending our money to the east to be wealth distributed progressively to larger and larger populations of new Canadians, or we can make a nation and we can found it on values. And my hope, my dream would be that nation would be radically democratic, which means we vote on everything. Switzerland is a great model for that. They do it very well. They don't have a prime minister or a president. They have a council of 7 that makes decisions, and the most power in the entire country is vested in the local governments. So I forget what they're called there, but the federal government is very, very weak. And I think that's what we should try to create. But actually, the problem is right now we couldn't, because there's not enough people involved in our governance to make that happen. That's the truth. Now, through the work of yourself and about maybe 30 other people, 40 other people maximum, there's a lot more people involved right now. Like we have seen a huge uptick in engagement, particularly the measurement that I like to use is before COVID, the average AGM for the United Conservative Party, the founding one, there was like 3,000 people at, because they brought the parties together and Jason Kenney had won and he wanted to bring a bunch of people to celebrate him. The next one, I think there was less than 1,000. And the one after that, there was like 600 people, and then they bust in 500 people to take over the board.
Yeah, the first
And
one I
that
went
was
to was I think it was 800 people, and I had no idea what to do. I didn't know where to stand. I was that awkward guy, didn't know how to put my hands, just completely foreign territory.
yeah. Well, I think your first one was Edmonton, right?
It was at the casino, and
Yeah,
I
in
think
Edmonton at the River
they made us.
Cree.
We had to swab. Do you remember that, the swabbing phase?
Yeah, there was. Yep, and there was 900 900 people at that one. So that was the first TBA one where I traveled the province encouraging people. We only had 900. The next year, we had over 2,000. The year after that, it was over 6,000, and then I think this year it was 4,500, 5,000 registrations or something. So we're seeing an increase in engagement, and I'm very proud of those people. There's thousands of people that are showing up that never showed up before and are showing up every year. That's really encouraging. That means that there's growth, and that kind of growth. Now, here's what I hope happens, and I think we can win this. So that I want to put that in the category of I think we could become an independent nation, or I wouldn't be investing so much of my own political capital and time and effort into this. But even if we don't succeed, the process of the signature collection and the process of having the referendum will organize people in a democratic way that will create a much stronger and more vibrant Alberta, because that campaign happened. If we look at it that way, right? If we understand that the way you get good at something is by doing it over and over again, like that is the way to get good at something, then you're not going to start out as good at politics. And I don't think that that most people kind of want to accept that. I've managed personally 40 campaigns, and about half of them were people who'd never run before. And almost universally, when you become a candidate, it does something messed up to your head. Like you become delusional, and you think that you can do things that have never been done, and that you are a master of the craft, and you're going to change the way that politics works. I'm sorry, politics is a skill like carpentry, like being a mechanic, like anything else. And the way you get good at it is by mastering it. And the way you master something is by doing it over and over again. And that's why I tell people, go sit on the CA boards, go to the AGMs, because if they go enough years, they're going to get more and more engaged. And I mean, we've seen incredible success from people that have risen all the way up to the board of directors of the United Conservative Party from never being involved before. Many of them now, most of the board, right? To be honest.
That's true.
And I think that shows that there's a couple of things that shows. The first is that there's not a lot of competition. I'm just sorry to say, there's just not a lot of people showing up. So if you do show up, you're probably going to rise unless you really got nothing going for you. Right? Like you're probably going to get involved, and before you know it, you'll probably be on a CA board, because that's how few people are. Like you'll probably be a board member on a constituency association without trying very hard. And if you go a little higher and a little higher, like who knows where you can go? Maybe you become premier one day. Like it is like anything else, right? And the more people we have doing it, the better the quality of the people that we will get, because that's how competition works. And a lack of competition, monopolistic, the monopoly of power, which our apathy has created, is where corruption flourishes. That's just the truth. And if we don't want to leave democracy behind and become some kind of monarchy or dictatorship, like many, many, many places in the world, China, most of the Middle East, a lot of, Asian countries, if we don't want to go down that path, and that path is a human path, and it could happen to us even if we don't want to go down it. But if we don't want to go down it, and I don't want to go down it, then we really only have one option, and that's that we have to become more involved. And that was what every one of my town halls was about. You came and spoke at some of them. That was my message, is that no politician is going to be able to fix this. And I stand by that message. And I think anybody that has ever listened to me knows that, I mean, If you listen to the speech that I gave at the Rebel event a little while ago, I guess it was almost a year ago now, it's the same message: is nobody's going to be able to fix this. Things are about to get very, very bad. Like they already are. Like, I think we underestimate how in pain a lot of people are right now. Like the start of this year is existential for many, many people. Like, how am I going to afford my rent or my mortgage or my food or my gas? And gas is cheap right now. Wait until it catches up with inflation.
Yeah.
When that happens, there's going to be two options. There's going to be get involved, get something done, save what our ancestors built, or burn it all down. Those are going to be the two options. Some countries have chosen burn it all down, and they have had a horrible centuries. I mean, look at Argentina. They became socialist in like the early part of the 19th century, and they've never recovered. They used to call Buenos Aires, they used to call it the Paris of the West. Argentina was richer than Canada back then per capita. Really? Oh yeah. We have so many examples throughout history, geopolitically, of the failure of socialism, of the failure of communism. I mean, at least socialism just causes starvation and poverty and deprivation. Like communism slaughters people. 40 million Russians, 100 million Chinese minimum, probably more, when communism took over both of those places. So that's where Canada's headed, not socialism.
Why?
We're already.
Why is it that so many places just tend to drift towards that type of ideology?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the Enlightenment. So the Enlightenment brought about the idea that human knowledge was basically like a spark, like a divine spark that's in you. And therefore we can do anything. We can transform anything. Technology really got people believing that we are kind of gods, right? Like, look at how we can travel. Look at what you and I are doing right now. Like, to our ancestors, that would be unfathomable. But ultimately, I think it comes with the death of God. Like, if you are the ultimate authority in your life, then, I mean, who's the ultimate authority in the material world? Government. And so if there's no God over government, then you start to worship government. And I think a lot of people rely on government. I mean, I think in Manitoba, 50% of the population is employed by the government, or 50% of the people who are employed by the government.
Jeez.
So like it becomes your God, right? It becomes but the problem with that is that it defies the laws of economics and physics, right? You have to create, you have to produce, and government. I mean, there's a very simple concept in economics called supply and demand. And then on top of that is what's called deadweight loss, right? So everybody knows this. It's taught in first year economics, but when you tax something, you increase the price of it artificially, right? So that means that there is demand that gets suppressed because it's below what that price would be. Like, let's say I'll buy a sandwich for $20, but I'm not going to buy it for 25, right? Well, if the tax makes it 25, then I'm not in that. I'm not going to buy that sandwich anymore, right? And that's just known. Everybody who ever takes economics knows that. And Canadians are taxed on their income at an average of 40%. If you make over, I think it's 150, then you're over 50% income tax. That's like employees in the country of Canada pay more taxes than businesses on their income. Because, I mean, why are we disincentivized? Like, because a tax, they claim they tax cigarettes so much because they want to disincentivize it.
Oh, that works great. Yeah.
So why are they taxing income so much? Do they want to disincentivize that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they tax carbon because they say that they don't, because they want to diminish it. Well, why are we taxing income? I could go on and on. Like, I think taxation is theft, very much so. But But I think that the level of taxation in Canada, like, we pay more in taxes than what the Bible says the slaves paid in Egypt, and they were called slaves. And like their whole founding myth or reality, whatever you may believe, is around getting out from that slavery that was less taxes than we pay in Canada right now.
And people
Right.
just accept it. Like, this is okay. We need this, right? You know, one of the reasons why I think that societies can drift towards that kind of totalitarian state is that evil doesn't sleep, tyrants don't rest, they don't stop and just think someone else is going to do it for them. They're always active, they're doing it, they're trying. And the people, they just watch hockey, and you know, they go to a concert and don't even think about it. And yet the wheels are in motion, the gears are turning, and boom, all of a sudden we're taxed beyond belief. We're sending billions of dollars to other countries to fight wars we have nothing to do with, while our own people starve. You know, like it,
Or die in the hospital.
or die in the hospital waiting for treatment. Like, how bad does it have to get before people get it through their head that we need to do something different, right?
Worse. It needs to get worse.
Right.
A lot worse.
I
mean,
want to see it get worse. It's already
I don't want it to get worse either, but I'm telling you, like, math is math, and the laws of, you know, it's like if someone jumps off a building and they die, I mean, that's horrible. That's a tragedy. But if they purposely jump off the building, like they're trying to die, right? Because the law of gravity, that's how much we believe in the law of gravity, right? We know it's a law. We live according to it, right? Well, there's a law in economics. It's not a theory. It's not an idea. It's the law of supply and demand, right? And the law of supply and demand is the more supply, like if you overwhelm demand with supply, the value goes down, the price goes down, right? That's just a law. Well, what do you think we're doing with money as government right now when we're running? Where do you think that money that the government's running the deficits coming from? They borrow it. That's printing money. It's like they are reducing the value of every dollar you earn with every dollar they spend over budget. That's just the reality of it. And it's worse than that. I could go into all of the deeper levels, but at a very simple level, every time they borrow an extra dollar, the dollar that you work for becomes less valuable.
I wonder how many of them, before they started doing those things, put their wealth in metals because they knew it was
or land. Or manufacturing. Like, anything real produces real value. But if all you're transacting in is fiat currency, then the government determines the value of what you're transacting in. Okay? And if that, like, this is where I get discouraged, probably, is, do you know how uneducated our population is now?
Largely.
Like to a level that our ancestors would have shuddered, right? Like, people are graduating high school, a lot of people in America, and they can't even read. They can't even read a book. They watch videos on their phones, right?
Why do I need to read? I can watch a video.
Or I can listen to a podcast. Well, sure, okay, like, but that's passive. It's not active. You're not doing the imagination. You're not, doing the work yourself, which is the reading. You're not. But I'm getting a little bit off track. But the point is, if you don't even know how something works, how are you going to change it? And there's a lot. Well, this is how people change things if they don't know how it works. They say, "Hey, you person who knows how to do that thing, go do it. Go do it," right? Well, the problem is that there's a lot of people who do know how the system works who are profiting immensely off of it. And they don't want people to be involved. And this is what's going to happen, okay, with the UCP. I can tell you right now. There will not be nominations. There's going to be a snap election, is my guess. And a bunch of people won't run. Their papers just won't be signed. And because they'll say, well, it's a slap election, it's an emergency, so we're not going to hold nominations. Now, the reason for this is very simple. What happens if they do allow nominations? Well, a lot of APP folk are going to show up and vote for independence-minded people. There's tens and tens of thousands of them across the province, and they're far more organized than any other group of people, including the Forever Canadians. So then there's going to be a lot. So the UCP will become, because the grassroots is, an Alberta Independence Party.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that happens, Danielle isn't going to be able to lead that because she doesn't believe in independence. So what's the answer? Get rid of, or make sure it's not an independent caucus, so the government of Alberta is still run by the Kenny cabal. And of course, the government of Alberta is the legitimate, authority, and they also are the taxation authority. So they spend all of the money that you pay in taxes. Well, they're still, and then we can have a referendum, but they'll be the ones negotiating it, and they will have secured the caucus, totally taken it over, right? There'll be nobody left to oppose them. And then at that point, they'll just swamp an AGM. Maybe they have to spend a couple $1 million. Well, they spend $70 billion. That's their budget, or $77 billion now. What's a couple $1 million just to take over the board of the party, change the constitution of the party so it's not so grassroots, just like they'd have in Ontario. Even the BC Conservatives didn't have a grassroots party. And they've secured the party, and people can yell, people like us can yell and scream, but what are they going to do? Right? We're going to start our own party? I don't know. That's what the Wild Rose did when the PCs did this. So I guess we'll see what happens, but that's my prediction of what happens if people don't start showing up and start making their voices heard.
David, I have a ton of respect for your outlook on this stuff, because you've been there, you've done that, you've seen it. And I've heard other people say this too. So you know what my answer is? Regardless of what they do, we keep building the movement.
Yeah,
we build a movement.
That's all we can do.
Database.
Exactly.
We get to the point where, as our friend Cam says, there's two ingredients for Alberta independence: one, the will of the people, and two, international recognition.
Yeah,
we worry about those two
absolutely
things, So yeah. I do have hope that we can do that.
Oh, I have a lot of hope, because here's the thing. They still live in the world where all the things I just said are the predominant reality.
Bingo.
Right?
Yep.
They still live in that world. I mean, a good example is one psychological theory or sociological theory is that a generation is defined by the biggest traumatic event that happened during their formative years. So 9/11 for a lot of people was it was very formative for people like Pierre Poilievre, Jenny Burns' age category, right? Then there was the financial crisis, right? The 2008, that was very formative for my generation, my tier of people. And then for a lot of people, the election of Donald Trump in 2016 was a very defining tragedy for, not obviously, I don't see it that way, but it's seen as a turning point for Gen Z, basically, right?
It was like a sunrise for me.
Yeah, I was very happy, but that, when you think of it that way, I think that the defining moment for this next upcoming generation is going to be COVID. And the good thing about that, the hope, is that COVID showed what governments are willing to do,
and what they can do, what they can get away with,
what they can do, and what they're willing to do. And I think that got a lot of people realizing that they better get involved pretty quickly before they didn't have any say in what those governments were going to do.
So the only reason I got involved is because I realized that the government could just come and destroy me and my business, and get away with it.
Oh yeah, and they've been doing that for years to tons of people. But here's the thing, right? There's not very many of them. There really is not very many of them. Like, if people actually realize that the emperor has no clothes, that the people are actually in charge, and if enough people show up, what we want to happen will happen. Period. End of story. That the many are way stronger than the few. And this is a very old battle, right? This goes all the way back to Rome. Okay, so there was the proletariats and the opulates, right? And one wanted to represent the people, and one wanted to represent the elites. And you know who led for a time the proles? Julius Caesar. the fight is going to be, because we're going to win. The people are going to win. These elites are old, tired, and broken, and you can see it. The cracks are forming everywhere. Nobody's happy anymore. I mean, the teachers aren't happy, the nurses aren't, even the employees aren't happy of the government. They're the safest people of all, and they're not happy. So what's going on, right? Well, the corruption has got so bad that everybody's unhappy. So that's going to change. So the question we have to ask ourselves is it going to be changed by democracy or not? Because the people of Iran are calling for a king. Okay, they want a king. That's how bad it is. Pardon me?
That's really interesting.
Right? Like, and that's what happened in China. Right? Things got so bad they just said we want one leader and they're in charge and they make the decisions.
Well, to be fair, a dictatorship, a monarchy is potentially the best form of government, but only with
if you have a good monarch,
benevolent dictator. Right.
And the problem that you always face is you might have one, but they don't live forever.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're going one way or another. I personally, I don't even really like the Roman Empire. I like the Roman Republic. That's what I've studied most of my life. That's what has fascinated me most. Let's call it historically. And it fell because of, I believe, Romans gave up the duty of citizenship and they became opulent. They became so wealthy with all the slaves that they brought in and all of the wealth they got from conquering the world that they lost what it meant to be Roman.
Well, they did something else too, David.
Pardon me?
They did something else. They flung open the gates.
And anybody
who didn't share their values to be part of their society.
For slaves, that was what it was. They just brought all these slaves to do all the work, right? They didn't want to do the work anymore. They just wanted these conquered people. And what is a modern day employee, especially a minimum wage employee? Right? Like, sorry, that's what it is, right? Is they're bonded to their employer. I mean, think of how scared most people are to lose their job. That's everything to them, right? That is how they sustain their entire life. Like, is that not a form of slavery? I don't know.
Yeah.
Something to think about. But the point is, we are bringing in all these immigrants for cheap labor. We're doing it because we don't want to pay larger prices for Canadian workers, right? That's why the fruit pickers organizations and the Tim Hortons and all of these, industry organizations want all these immigrants to come in because they're cheaper. What is that? I mean, we don't call it slavery because that's not what we do anymore, but it's just bringing in people from around the world to do the work that we don't want to do. That's what the Romans did, right? And that's how they fell. So probably we're headed there. Like, it looks that way. But I think with the work that has been done already here, and I'm talking about the work for the last, since 1914 or whatever it was, when Alberta was founded, we've had some great leaders, like, who've thought about these things. Peter Lougheed, I think he was a great leader. Rural Alberta exists as it does today because of Peter Lougheed and his vision. Airports in places like Grand Prairie and Lethbridge and Red Deer. He was a great visionary leader who built an Alberta that wasn't focused on the two major cities. And that's why we have the strongest rural population. Like, we're the least urbanized. If you say that not being urbanized is outside of Edmonton and Calgary, we're the least urbanized province in the entire country. So that, the Mannings, right? Ernest Manning, he had a Bible show that he would do every week, I believe, or maybe every day. And he had a great vision, and he built, and then, of course, Ralph Klein, who everybody alive today pretty much who thinks about politics remembers, and he was formative for me. He was the premier, when I got into politics. We've had great leaders. We've had great men. Vince Byfield's dad, Ted Byfield, and Link Byfield, paragons of identifying what an Albertan is. Stephen Harper in his time, Preston Manning. A lot of men have done a lot of work to create the Alberta identity. And a lot of those men are not any of the people I've named, but the rig workers who went up and built the wealth here, or the visionaries who built the oil sands, or the pipeline fitters, the workers, because that's what Albertans are. We work. We believe in work. We love work. I love work. I want to work all the
Well, I
time.
must do it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So, in fact, I mean, I think that's maybe a cultural difference that we have from people from other parts of the country. Because a lot of people don't like to work, but I think the most common answer I get when I ask an Albertan how they're doing, and I'll know they're an Albertan by their answer almost universally, is busy. Busy, right? I'm busy. If you say, oh, I don't have a lot going on, an Albertan will feel bad for you. They'll be like, oh, I got a project if you want to help me on it. We just like doing things. I was talking to someone at my church recently, and they were saying, oh yeah, we just moved from BC, and there isn't as much to do here. And I'm like, I thought about it. I'm like, I mean, I guess all we do is work. Right? Like we're not so much into entertainment as much, like maybe outdoor entertainment, hiking, snowmobile.
There's a Yamaha dealership there and some mountains over there.
Yeah, exactly. That's our idea of fun. Go and risk your life in an avalanche. That's what we do. Or go kill a gigantic beast and eat its flesh. That's hunting, right? Or and I love those things, and those are Albertan things. And I think Mitch Sylvester actually embodies a lot of that. I mean, he loves hunting, he loves fishing, he loves hard work. There's a lot of people that I admire in this movement that embody what it means to be an Albertan, but that idea is also fading away. Our culture is dying because we're being washed away. Like Alberta is not an urban place. It's not who we are. It's not where our wealth is. It's not in our cities. It's in the countryside. It's in our fields. It's under the ground. It's in the work, fundamentally.
And that's what we need to protect that. And
we have to protect that.
The beautiful thing is we have the benefit of hindsight. We can look at all of these civilizations.
Oh, and we have all human knowledge at our fingertips.
Yep. Read the constitutions that worked, find out what didn't work. And we know, David, I'm sure you know this as well, that what we have right now isn't satisfactory to protect our freedoms from government, from bad government.
No, not at all.
Here's a
little interesting statistic for you, Chris, is what happened 250 years ago?
In the United States?
Yeah.
They bled for their independence.
No, the Declaration of Independence happened 250 years ago.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And actually, a good friend of mine is a Witherspoon. So he's literally descended from one of the signatories of the Declaration of Independence. But I think, it's been 250 years. Maybe it's time for another Declaration of Independence.
Well, and we might be there. And that's why I say we built a movement. Government can't stop that. It's rougher. It's a little more, it's not as pleasant. But
it's a lot more work.
The will of the people says that we don't want to be governed in this manner, then the governors can just bugger right off. And that's all there is to it, right?
I mean, look what's happening in Iran right now. Like right now, they're having a violent revolution to try to overthrow their government. Maybe they'll succeed, maybe they won't, but they will one day. Like nobody lasts forever in the business of in the Game of Thrones. I mean, I think if there's anything to be said for that show and book series, it should ingrain in the modern human mind how fleeting and fragile power is, right? And that's in a more bloody time. But look at Alberta. Danielle Smith's now the longest serving premier we've had in 15 years.
That's wild.
We usually get rid of them every 3.5 years. So she's, I like that about Alberta. I'm not going to lie. I liked it about Rome. Every single year, they would have I would love an Alberta where we had an election every year and people are like, oh, no. Well, why not? It's our most sacred duty. And it might get more people involved and it might it would definitely root out the corruption. Let me tell you, it would root out the corruption fast. Now, I'm probably not going to get that wish. Like, that's probably a pipe dream. People would probably revolt if they had to vote every. But maybe the answer is, well, if you don't want to vote, you don't have to, but then you're not a citizen.
You know what we could do though, David? We could actually do some educational reform and make civics mandatory. Why are we not teaching our kids these things? Our kids,
Australia makes voting mandatory, right?
Should be. Yeah. They're the ones that are inheriting.
The fact that people live in a democracy and don't even know what a CEA is, and I don't mean this as an insult to you at all. It's just like, this is the level of atrophy that we're at.
And I'll own that.
It's not your fault. It's intentional. They literally don't want you to know about it. It's not. Was it taught about in school?
Finances and civics, the two things that are, and religion and spirituality.
Yeah,
the three things that are most important in our lives, affect everything about our lives, and they don't teach them in school. Save for a few select places, I suppose they might.
This is exactly. So I think, I think people need to get off the idea that we need schools to teach civics. We need to make almost like an order of people. And our whole purpose is to say, this is how things work, and just teach as many people as we can, because there's so little real knowledge anymore. The digital age has wiped out human knowledge, and if we don't preserve it, it's just going to be all this mush and goop online, and no one's going to be able to navigate it. And so we need to become humans again. I say this a lot to people because I work in business and media and politics, and everybody's all about systems, or this new AI or whatever, a new way of making things easier or faster or better. And I don't have any problem with using tools for the purpose that tools are made for, but a good example is what we're going through in the financial markets right now with the parabolic rise of silver. Okay, the mines have been so underinvested in for 20 years, more than that now, I think, that there's no real silver industry that exists, right? Almost all silver production is a byproduct of lead and copper. And so for the last 7 years, we've been running huge supply deficits. So we've been consuming more silver than we mine or recycle every year for 7 years. This has just been happening. And nobody's done anything about it. And no capital's flowed into the silver industry because people just, they're chasing meme stocks, or they're chasing crypto, or whatever they're doing. They're in the click of a button phase. It's I want instant gratification. So now we have this tsunami coming at us of electrification through server farms, through battery operated vehicles, through robots, through rockets, and then of course, Tomahawk missile, for example, has 500 ounces of silver in it. Just one Tomahawk missile. And suddenly the world's about to run out. Literally, there's not gonna be any left within the next 6 months to a year, because of how fast it's being consumed by investors, but also by industry. And nobody believes it, despite the fact that what I just laid out for you is unquestionable. When you look at the numbers, nobody believes it because we live in the digital age. And so they're like, well, we can just fix things by making a new software or whatever, right? It's just, everything is magic now. That's how people think. And we've lost, and that's one of the things that I want to preserve about Alberta. And one of the things that I love about Alberta is that's not how Albertans think. They think I go and I do the work and I produce the value and I get paid based on the value that I produce. And that's how we've operated as a society. And that's why we saw that we had the oil and that it was hard to get. So we figured out how to get it. And now the whole world has changed the oil and gas industry because of what was discovered here. Right? That's Alberta. That's who we are. But if we don't preserve the institution of democracy, all of that wealth will be captured by a tiny minority of elites. And we'll be slaves. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what are you willing to sacrifice so that your children aren't slaves? And my answer to that is, this is the hill that I'll die on. If they're going to come for democracy, they're going to have to come through me. And I don't like that because I know it's a risk. I mean, look what happened to Charlie. But I don't want my sons to remember a man who let them become slaves, right? I'm not going to be that man.
Well, Mitch says the currency that we need to spend to do that is our time, and I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we have to. Like, if you don't show up, the world is run by the people who show up. Currently, the people who are showing up are stealing from you at a very high level, like a ton of money. They're stealing your life. And they're slowly taking away your freedoms. So if you don't show up, they're going to keep doing that.
Yeah. One of the comments from Nikki says democracy is a lie, and I agree 50% with it. The problem is democracy, the will of the people can go in a very bad direction. You have to have a foundation, a moral foundation that your society is built on that cannot change, that puts boundaries on democracy where it can go, much like what the United States has done. And then democracy can work. That's why the United States has maintained their freedom for 250 plus years, because they have that. Right?
That's how, and Rome was exactly the same, right? They got rid of their kings and they had democracy for almost, I think it was almost 500 years, but at least 400, because democracy is bad according to the Greeks. So let's go back to Plato, Aristotle, the first guys that talked about citizenship in a meaningful way that we still talk about. They hated democracy. They thought it was a terrible idea, because they knew that, people are bad, that there's evil in all of us, and they were afraid that the mob mentality would overcome virtue, which we saw during COVID, right? The mob overcame virtue. So that's a real fear and a real danger, and it is a dangerous form of government, and that's why they often evolve into monarchies or imperators, emperors, right? Because they are unstable and they're not as easy to control, and they can cause chaos, particularly if the mob gets control, which, you could almost say that it has right now. But I think, despite all that, if you look at the English, particularly the English tradition, so we're talking from the Magna Carta that eventually evolved into the American Constitution, but it started obviously in England because the United States was once a colony of England's. That tradition's worth fighting for. That tradition, particularly, I think it's brought the most freedom and prosperity, religious freedom of any other system in the entire world. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about monarchy even. I'm just talking about that tradition that's evolved and that became the United States of America. And now I think it needs a new evolution for the digital age. The stuff that was written 250 years ago has really held up, but we need more checks and balances. We need more democracy because of centralization of power through the digital age to check the centralization that's happening. But that's not going to happen if you, the listener, and 10 of your friends or 100 of your friends don't show up. So how can you show up? Let's give a really simple breakdown. Number one, listen to the podcast, glean the information, do the research, have an answer for what you believe. Don't just say, I support independence. And then when, some lawyer or some, hoity-toity elite comes at you with a hard question and you don't have an answer and you're like, well, I don't know. And then you've shamed the movement when that happens as an individual, right? It's your duty to know the answers to the questions. And here's the thing. I've given 200 speeches. I gave 100 speeches on how people needed to get involved if they didn't like Jason Kenney, and they needed to show up to the general meeting and vote, right? That's what you have to do if you're upset with the premier. That was the message. And 18,000 people bought tickets to that, by the way. Well, if you want to be an independent country, we have to get 1 million people to sign a petition, because that'll guarantee it. If we can get 1 million, then we say, hey, everybody, bring one friend. You have to convince one person. If you sign this petition, you all have to convince one person and bring them to vote, and we win. It's over, right? It's done. Now, will everybody do that? No. No, probably half or a quarter will. But even if they do that, and we do a lot of work as that million who signed the petition, this is winnable. It's so winnable. But how can that happen? Well, if you don't have an answer for a debate, then people aren't going to follow you. They're not going to listen to you. They're not going to sign your petition. But if you do the work of educating yourself, then you can go out and start having the conversations. That's step 2. And the conversations will happen because this is going to be the most important political event in Alberta's history, as you pointed out earlier, Chris. So when that conversation comes, you need to make your case. This is why it would be better. And you should not make that case, and this is a problem that many conservatives have, you should not make that case on a fact basis. Yes, you'll have the facts, and you need to have the facts, and you need to back up your arguments. But if you focus only on the facts, pardon me?
There's an emotional part of this.
You have to explain the emotional reason, because that's how most people think. Yeah. All politicians understand this. All media, marketers, everybody understands that emotion drives way more than facts. Anybody who's ever had any power knows that. So don't just make the factual arguments and then get mad when they don't agree with your facts. Make the emotional arguments. Do you want your children to be raised in the country that Canada is becoming? That's the question that I asked myself that made me pro-independence. Because I don't. The answer is no. And I asked myself that question deeply. I did 200 episodes of a podcast called The Canadian Story. I did probably a lot more work than anybody else is going to do on it, just asking themselves that question. But you have to be prepared to go out and have them and be confident and powerful. Now, the beauty of it is we don't need 1 million people to know their stuff and to be able to make the arguments. We need 10,000. If 10,000 people will go and get 100 each, if they'll do the work and have 100 conversations and get them to sign, that's 1 million right there. So we just need 10,000 people who are willing to educate themselves to the level where they're an expert. So I'm talking, you're probably going to have to listen to 40, 50 hours of podcasts, be reading stuff online. Like you're going to have to immerse yourself to become an expert so that you can make the case. So that's the first step. And the second step is then you have to have the conversations. Those are going to happen naturally because this is going to be so important. And then you have to convince them to sign the petition. Right? That's the 3-step process. And if you can do that 100 times, if 10,000 people can do that 100 times, which I absolutely believe is possible, then we will more than double Thomas Lukaszik's Forever Canada petition, and we will be in an insanely good position to win a referendum.
That campaign was strictly emotion. It had no factual or evidentiary basis.
They have no facts. That's why that won't debate. Nobody will debate.
That's
right? Nobody's willing to come on a debate.
I have some shameless self-promotion here. David, okay. I watched some writing that you were doing for a while there. You were doing some really good kind of blog length posts. And so I started writing again.
Good. I loved your Christmas post, by the way. I shared it. I thought it was phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. So when something's on my mind or when I speak at an event, I'm trying to record what I'm trying to get out there in a blog so people can read it. So I've been talking about some of the things that I see going on, but I spend a lot of time talking about Alberta independence. This one here, what business have you with me, Your Majesty? That's my opinion on the formation of Canada and how it wasn't a grassroots thing. It was a business deal between London and some Canadian elites. But you go down a little farther, and I've got some Alberta independence stuff here, and I do everything I can to record my debate material with rebuttals to what I'm saying so that people can read this stuff and they've got the information. And I fact check it. I run it through ChatGPT, and then I run it through Grok to see where I'm wrong. And I invite people to send me messages and give me input if they think I'm wrong, think I'm right, whatever. And then I adjust it as necessary. But I'm actually trying to do that. And this is something anybody can do. Anyone can do it.
Yes, this is great. And you know, for those people out there that are using AI for that kind of thing, this is a great use for it. Like, have conversations about it. Question yourself. Question it. It's a lot easier to say, is this factually true? How much is Alberta sending? And then don't just take the first number that the AI gives you. Say, find the report. Find the government published report of how much money it was.
Citations, yeah. Footnotes.
Find the Fraser Institute. Compare Fraser Institute to Government of Canada reporting. Like, you can get it to cross-reference stuff all the time, but that's exactly what you're doing. Imagine if there were 10 Chris Scotts, we'd probably win, right? Like, if 10 people did the work that you're doing. I've told Mitch, if we had 20 Mitches running around, this would be a breeze. We wouldn't even have to worry about it. Like, there's so few people doing the work. People, wake up. Like, you have to do it. Like, Chris and I will continue to work as hard as we can and are, because that's who we are. But it's not going to get done by just Chris and I, right? It's not going to get done by Mitch. It's not going to get done by Jeff Rath. It's not going to be all these big names who've, and I'm probably one of the smallest ones with one of the smallest followings, but I probably have had almost some of the most impact. But that's because so few people actually show up. If you and this is actually a biblical principle, right? Is one of the verses that a lot of people don't like is, to he who has, more will be given, and to he who does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. Right? That's a harsh verse, words of Jesus, right? But that actually is a very commonly understood economic and and psychological principle called the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. And everybody who's ever been in an organization knows this to be true. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. That's just a fact. Everybody knows it. If you're employed in any organization, if you're involved in any church, if anything that you do, 20% of the people will do 80% of the work. Okay. That is absolutely going to be the case with the independence movement. So when we were talking about 10,000 people, 2,000 of those people will do 80% of the work. Okay. So 2,000 of those people will work their butts off and get 800 signatures each. And the other 8,000 people will get, 200 or 20 signatures each. Okay. Or 20 or 30. That's what's going to happen, because I've been on enough campaigns. I know sociology well enough. That's how humans work. Is the small group of dedicated people are the ones that move it. But don't, and I believe, and I know Mitch believes, and I think you probably believe too, is that anybody's status in the organization of any kind should be directly correlated to how much work they do.
100%.
If you're not the hardest working person in the organization, you're not the leader. Period. End of story.
And just full disclosure, people, I am not the hardest working people within the APP. Some of those volunteers, the hours they put in is phenomenal. Like you wouldn't believe it. It's more than a full-time job.
I'll do a shout out to two particularly that I think are just absolute. They were champions in Take Back Alberta. They were champions in the freedom movement in the convoy era. They're champions now as Art and Adele. Just phenomenal people doing an absolutely insane amount of work, and they take no credit for it, and they never get on stage to talk hardly. They are phenomenal. And they are,
what they did this year,
I don't know a single leader in the freedom movement that doesn't have respect for them. Not one.
Do you know what they did that was amazing this year? Actually, over the last couple of years, they actually worked their butts off to get a policy resolution on the floor of the AGM to get rid of non-consented medical interventions in your city water, which is fluoride.
Yes, they're big on that. Yeah, and I totally agree with them, and I tip my hat to all of their efforts on it. But yeah, I think there are so many people, thousands of them, that are already doing this. Let's get it to 10,000. If we get it to 10,000, we will get 1 million.
I believe that, and there's enough people, I think, just wanting to volunteer right now that we should be able to build that volunteer base fairly easily. That's one of the things that we need to focus on right now is accumulating, organizing, and deploying volunteers, not only for the signature collection, but the impending referendum campaign, because that's what's coming after that.
That's the beauty of the signature collection, right? Is the test run for the referendum. And that's why we need to get 1 million, because we need to make our goal. I mean, 1 million, if we only got 1 million votes for the referendum, it would fail, right? We need at least 1.8 for this thing to win this thing. But if we get 1 million signatures on the petition to have it, well, that's 1 million we've already got. Now we just need to get 800,000 more. And we probably are going to be a lot bigger of a movement at that point.
And more exciting.
Yeah. It'll be a lot more, but because most people, they don't think a petition is exciting. I'm like a horse, waiting for the gate to open, like for tomorrow. Like I want to get 10,000 signatures myself. That's my personal goal. But yeah, I think it's going to be great, and I think we're going to win.
I got to ask you something. Early on in our meeting, you were working really hard to get Jason Kenney fired, and you did a fantastic job getting enough people together to do that. We butted heads every once in a while about Alberta independence. Sometimes it was a little bit heated, but it was mostly fun. What was it that actually put you over the edge to be like, you know what, it's time?
Probably having a son. Not just having a son. I have.
Well, that's a big deal.
And nieces and nephews too, right? But yeah, I for me, I'm pretty. I could survive almost anywhere. Like I don't really need much. I'm an Albertan, right? Like I've lived most of my life pretty Spartan. So, and I'm not driven by material things either. Like that's just not what interests me. I'm an ideas guy, very dedicated to thought and just, I don't know. People. I think people are what matters. And I like understanding them or trying to. So I read a lot and all that kind of stuff. But when my son was born, I was like, he's not going to know anything of what I loved, because I really loved Canada and really believed in it. My ancestors settled this country, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, over 250 years ago. One of my ancestors settled in Ontario. Some of my ancestors came over as the first settlers to settle in North America. We've been here a long time, and I love Canada. It's the Canada that I loved. The idea that I thought of what it was, really I was a patriot. I would even argue that up until 4 years ago, I loved my country more than God. It was my God to a degree. And then COVID destroyed that for me. And because it was just so contrary to all of the values that I believed Canada stood for and that I thought Canada was.
I felt that. And
so I lost my love for Canada, but I didn't think Alberta could do it, is the honest truth. I just didn't think that Albertans had it in them. And during that time, I would say during the convoy and TBA, I don't think they did. And I think it was the work of APP that has got them to the point where they do. And so I credit APP with that. I'm not a founder of anything independence minded. I'm not the driver of it. I've not done the meetings for it. I don't take credit for it. I'm a fan. I'm like a hype man for independence is how I see myself now, but not the driver of it, not one of the founding fathers, nothing like that. Just a man who believes in it. And I believe in it because, to be honest, of one man, and that his name is Mitch Sylvester. And I watched him put in the work for what he believed in it. And I watched what he's built by doing that. And and here's the thing. This is the honest truth. He's able to lead in a way that I'm not, because he brings people together in a way that I don't. I can inspire people, but I can't get them to work for me because I hate working for anyone. So having people work for me is just something that I don't like. You can ask the people who work for me. It's very difficult because I just don't like being told what to do. And so I don't like telling people what to do. And that's the Scottish in me. I'm 50% Scottish. So, I just think it's pretty much in the blood, but Mitch is able to. And I think we can all say that what APP is now versus even what it was before, he really rallied the resources that have been created by the work that you and Modri and others had done and turned it into an absolute fighting machine that it is today. And all of you guys have got better, which I think that's pretty obvious, is the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Mhm.
Right. And it's been how many years now since the founding? More than 5?
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah. So 5 years, you're going to get better at something if you keep doing it. And you guys have been doing it pretty consistently for 5 years. So I
You know
think,
who else helped?
pardon me?
You know who else helped big time?
Who?
One of the best salespeople for Alberta independence.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I'm
I was
just being honest here, folks.
I was
Mark Carney
on
being
the train
elected.
before he got elected, but that was
Yeah.
honestly, we wouldn't be here today without him. So we do have
Yeah.
to give him, we have to give him a big props for that. But
That was a
yeah.
big realization. Like, no
I'll say
matter how much
there's
abuse, it just
two other
doesn't end.
people that helped put it on the map. One of them we have to say is that video from Jeff Rath got 6 million views that my wife did,
Yes.
and Charlie Kirk was a big driver in retweeting that, and then Elon Musk did comment on that tweet. So I feel like that everyone was feeling a lot of anger and wanting to do something, and APP had everything ready, and all of the volunteers and resources from all the work that had been done with, and then Mitch had done his pension plan meetings, and so there was a critical mass, and I think that was the spark that blew it out. Like it. So I'll give my wife credit for that. She lit a spark that exploded.
That was fantastic.
Yeah,
that was fantastic. Yeah. I remember when I had to resign, as I signed on as the interim CEO because I wanted to do whatever I could to help the project.
Yeah,
I had to resign because number one, I'm suing the government, and it just wasn't easy to talk to government. Number two, I run a business and I just have no time and money. So I resigned with lots of notice, and there was another interim CEO, and then Mitch came on. But one of my final kind of pieces of guidance before I left was, listen, things are kind of mellow right now. We need to lower everything down, just online stuff only. We're not going to do events or anything. We're not spending any money because we don't have any money. It's all funded by you folks. Something's going to happen. We need to keep the network together and be ready. And by golly, it was like
something happened. Something happened.
6 months later.
But you know what's funny is everybody thought Pierre was going to win up until January of last year. Was the first time anybody even had an inkling that it wouldn't happen. And now the times, they are changing, aren't they?
It was a Western conservative revival. Like, he was filling stadiums. It was a shoe-in. Everyone thought for sure he's going to win, and he didn't. Why? Because our vote doesn't carry enough weight.
Because we need to be our own country. I mean, that if you didn't listen to anything else, that's Alberta has to be its own country, because we don't share the value. We don't share the values of Canadians.
Yeah, and regardless of what topic we're on, whether it's pensions or taxes or whatever, if we can't get enough people together and vote, or have a possibility to bring enough people, vote, and change a policy that's affecting our lives, if we cannot do that, that is not democracy. That's tyranny. And no society, no people should have to live under that. We should be able to chart our own course forward.
And here's the thing, is like, it will end. Tyranny always ends. Somebody always overthrows it. Like, look what's happening in Iran. Look what happened in Argentina. Look, the UK seems to be getting something going. Maybe it does get overthrown eventually, and the people that are involved in it are punished. But sometimes that's hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen, because we have this, we have Twitter, we mass communication is available. It's a very different world than the world even our parents grew up in. But what I will say is there's a fork in the road, right? It's going to be tyranny. Like, it's going to be either monarchy of some kind, or it's going to be democracy. And that's where we're headed. And we have to make that choice. And literally each of you will make that choice based on how much you participate. That's the truth.
Word. We're at an hour and 21 minutes. So I guess in the interest of respecting your time, David, we should wrap this up. But before we do, if people want to reach out to you or get more information or anything like that, how do they do that?
So I think on my name, if you look at it, my X handles there. That's kind of my most forward facing place right now. You can DM me there. You can email takingbackalberta@gmail.com. I don't always look at that email. So, if you don't hear back from me right away, it's best place to reach me is probably X. Yeah, I'm going to be doing 10 events myself, kind of Take Back Alberta events, talking about independence over the next 3 months. So I'll follow if you're on the email list, you'll be getting an email. We have a Telegram for Take Back Alberta. So if you're interested in hearing me speak more on this topic, I'll be giving 10 speeches over the next 3 months on that, just to help out in the way that I know how and with the list that I have. I'll also be setting up Take Back Alberta signature collection like events. So we'll obviously have APP there in the back, and we'll just have an event. And if you want to sign the petition, they're there at the back, and hopefully we get a bunch of signatures that way. I got to run all that by Mitch and stuff like that. Make sure there's not cross-pollinating political advertising. Obviously, I've pissed off Elections Alberta quite substantially.
Yeah, and we're going to be into the weeds now with the
oh, absolutely. So I've got my court case coming up in January with a judge they're trying to criminally charge me for not publishing the names of my donors. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'll be in the fight. But the place, I mean, I tweet too much, to be honest, but it's kind of fun, and I'm a little bit like Elon that way. I like
you and
it.
My friend Jeff have the same kind of
disease, yes.
etiquette. Yeah.
But I like it. It's a fun place. I've made a lot of friends there, and yeah, I've got a little group, a little 250, a little cadre of us that enjoy ourselves. So I actually recently had a post get 8.5 million views, which was a little wild for me. Never had anything like that happen before, but it was about banks, which made me very happy because I hate banks. So yeah, that felt good. But
8.5 million.
Yeah, if you go, you got to go down to the 26th or the 27th, I think. See, I tweet wild. A lot. Oh, above that. It's above that. It's a screenshot of a white thing with red words.
I'll keep looking for it. I just wanted
above
to
that. Above that. Yeah. Keep going. 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 Oh, where is it?
I just wanted to show people that this is your.
Oh yes, profile. Yes, it's on there somewhere. People can find it. But yeah, it was that was a wild experience. But yeah, I say what I think on there about pretty much anything. So if you want to know what I think, you can almost watch a live feed of it. Some people like that, some people don't. I don't really care. I spent my whole life censoring myself because I was part of the Conservative Party of Canada, and I was a staffer, and you're not allowed to say your own opinions when you're a staffer. So now I'll say what I think, and we'll see where that leads. But I will say, I think that what we're seeing in Alberta today has a lot to do with people like you and me and Mitch, and there's probably about 100 or 200 people who've said what they think, and a lot of people have liked that. So,
well, we just watched some young man in the United States saying what he thought for a few years, and I will say Charlie changed the world.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
100%. I mean, he paid a price for it, but man, what I witnessed after that was it was nothing short of a miracle.
Yep, a lot of people's lives, which has been beautiful.
Yep. Okay, well, all David, right, unless you have anything else, I guess we'll.
No, I probably rambled on enough, talked your ear off, but thanks for having me on. I do like talking about these things. I gave a lot of speeches on them too, so.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing the next ones and seeing some of your events. And I'm looking forward to your blog and your writing again. That's fantastic
Yeah,
stuff.
well, I like doing that particularly during Lent because during Lent I don't go on X. I'm a big believer in you always gotta take breaks from things if they're becoming a big part of your life. So during Lent there'll be a lot more, which is coming up in a few months here, and I should do more writing. It's hard with a toddler and a newborn, but
Yeah,
I should. Yeah.
I get it. Well, you're following Charlie's advice. Get married, have babies.
No, I am. Oh, absolutely, guys. That's I believe, and I will don't get me wrong, folks. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Every parent knows it. It is a lot of work. Like, do not kid yourself. But everything of any value in life is going to be a lot of work, and this is the most important thing you could do. That I will end with. The most important thing you could do, and the hardest thing you will ever do, is be a parent.
100%. All right. Well, I'm going to let you get back to being a parent, and I'll do my close, and I'm going to go do the same thing. Although I'm probably just going to go to bed because my kids are older.
I'm probably headed there myself soon. All right. Have a good one.
Thanks again, David. Good night, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Well, there you go, folks. I hope that gave you the information that you were looking for, or at least some of it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I do not believe there is anybody in this province who is more well-versed in civics and politics and how to get things done than David Parker. And love him or hate him, I really don't care. But what he says, he's right. And you should listen to what he's saying and ponder it. If you actually want to change things in this province, if you want to change the world and leave it a better place than when you got here, the things that man is telling you will allow you to do that. All you got to do is listen and act. The time that you spend will be the currency you pay for your future. And if we pay enough currency, we'll get a much, much better future. So I suggest we do that. And that's going to start right away. I think in just a week or a little over a week, the signature drive is open and starting. So people will be canvassing and collecting signatures under the Citizen Initiative Act to compel the government to table a referendum on the question of Alberta sovereignty. So you're going to sign a petition that's going to compel the government to put this question to the people of Alberta. So the signature collection isn't the end of it. That's just the beginning. Then there's a referendum campaign where we have to continue educating Albertans as to the merits and benefits of Alberta independence, the rationale behind it. We have to educate them so that when the referendum question is in front of them, they can make an educated decision. And I will tell you right now with 100% certainty, if you set your emotional bias or your emotional connection to what you believe Canada could be or was, if you set that aside and you look at the facts and the evidence and the history, I can guarantee you that you cannot come to any other conclusion other than Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. Have a great night, folks. See you tomorrow. Meow. Alberta independence, necessary and inevitable. Whistlestoptruckstop.ca/Alberta independence, necessary and inevitable. Night, folks.